Did you know how many similarities there were between riding bulls and running a business? I had no idea in my career as a bull rider that I was actually preparing myself to run my own business. And I'm going to take the time over the next little bit as I carve out this specialty pattern here of a bull rider and give you a little bit of insight behind my journey from going from being a bull rider to running my own business, some of the lessons I've learned along the way through both the wins and the losses, and really, rather than looking at something as winning or losing, I think we look at it as winning or learning. And if you go at it with that mindset, then we can always be learning from what we do. And even when you have the rough days and the days where things just keep seeming like they go wrong, you can't get it right, you look and find the lessons in that. So that was probably maybe one of the biggest things I learned through bull riding is it doesn't always go right. There's a lot of outside variables that you don't always have control over. So a little bit of my journey and how did I get into bull riding, and then how did that lead into a business where now, instead of dealing with bulls in the arena, I kind of deal with bulls in a different sense, and the fact that once that leather's all tanned, here we are carving and making something out of it. But to start off with, how did I begin as a bull rider? That goes back to when I was a kid. I just kind of always had a desire to. I grew up around horses, but not around the rodeo world. But we'd always kind of gone to a couple local rodeos, and I started asking my dad when I was 5, and he started finally letting me when I was 6 get on steers and calves. And then when I was 12, I started riding bulls, and it developed from there. And I couldn't really tell you exactly what it was, just always had that desire to. And I think it was, a little bit of the adrenaline and, doing what others weren't able or willing to do. And that's one thing when you set out to ride bulls, there's a lot of people that are fans. A lot of people think it's a cool idea. They like watching it. They might think, oh, it'd be really cool to do that someday, or I wish I would have done that. But never quite take that step to crawl over and nod their face. And I think that's a big similarity in business too. A lot of people think, man, that would be really cool. I want the freedom of my schedule. I want to call my own shots. I want to do all that stuff. And they want to have the benefits, but aren't willing to take that risk. And there's risks involved when you are riding bulls. That's pretty evident, right? It's a physically demanding sport. It's not like a bad day at basketball and you just didn't win. Bad day at rodeo and you might not live, right? That's there's really some danger factors in that. But how did I get from bull riding to business? So as a bull rider, I rodeoed through high school. I started amateur rodeoing at the same time, so I was going to different, what you would consider amateur professional rodeos. So you can make money there, but it's not at a fully professional level. You can do that at a younger age, but then to do at professional rodeos, you have to be 18. So once I went through high school, going to amateur rodeos and high school rodeos, then on into college, I actually ran a lot of different events, but focusing on the bull riding for this story. From there, at the same time as going to college, I got my professional card, or my permit, and started going to pro rodeos, and went to pursue goals of being a world champion. That was my big goals there. I wanted to go to the NFR, which was the kind of the Super Bowl of rodeo. They take the top 15 bull riders in the world in the PRCA each year to the NFR in Las Vegas, and that was, boy, I was pretty just focused in on that, and there's definite ups and downs throughout that career, and I had got really close to that. I wound up 16th in the world one year, and just missed making the NFR, but then ran into a lot of injuries along the way and started slowing things down a bit. So sideline that story with how I got into leather work. I wanted nice things. I wanted nice belts and chaps and things like that, and couldn't really afford to go buy them, so I had to learn how to make them. The first things I made with help were a couple pairs of chaps back in high school. They were definitely left a lot to be desired, but one pair in high school and then one pair in college. I remember in college I wanted a pair of bronc chaps for bronc riding, and I was cutting fringe with a pair of scissors on my kitchen table. Like, it was not a whole lot of leather skills involved, but there was a desire there. So I didn't let the lack of skills get in my way. I just figured, let's go for it, right? Then later on, I wanted a real nice belt, and I started, I took a little class in town with a guy who's super talented, built awesome stuff, was offering this little class, like, yeah, I'll help you build whatever you want to build. So I went in, took that, kind of got to learn more on the tooling side, and that's what kind of got the bug there. Started acquiring a few tools here and there, and then as I was home, either kind of in between rodeoing or when I was down for surgery, I told you there were some injuries involved there, then I would get more time tooling. As soon as people heard I do any kind of leather work, they start asking you, oh, well, can I get this? Can I get that? Will you build me this? So it started as a little bit of a kind of a side money gig, kind of pick up a little bit of money on the side as I go and help fund the rodeo stuff a little bit, but wasn't taking it overly serious. It was just kind of a side thing in the meantime while I was rodeoing. As I progressed throughout the rodeo, went later on in my career, again, like I said, started fighting some injuries, a lot more home time. Then I picked up and was doing more and more of the leather work, just taking on kind of odd jobs, not under any business of sorts, just under the table on the side, as Joe Mealing, the individual person. And then I took a job, again, after being down with some more injuries and fighting qualifications to get into some of the bigger rodeos I wanted to go to. I took a job at a saddle shop as a tooler, and then they brought me on to start doing some build work as well. And I liked some of the things I was doing, liked learning things, but I never did really like working for someone. But I had an opportunity to move back to Pendleton with the guy that I had started tooling with. He was going to be starting this new company, wanted me to come be a tooler. Thought it sounded like a really good opportunity, so went ahead and took that opportunity, quit the saddle shop. My wife and I at the time, we had just gotten married. I was coming back off of a broken neck, so I wasn't rodeoing hardly at all at the time. And that was kind of one of the big injuries that allowed me the time to get an actual job, I guess. Other than that, I couldn't commit to a job because I was on the road. But we moved back to Pendleton, and no more than that opportunity opened, it closed. His wife ran into health issues, and that whole startup business went away. So I kind of faced a dilemma, and it was either go find a job working for somebody or start my own thing. And I think that was where maybe one of the first similarities between bull riding and business came about, is that, if you don't enter, you can't win. It doesn't matter how bad you think you want to win. If you don't enter and you don't actually crawl on and nod your head, you can't win. So there was no way I could have a successful business of any sorts if I didn't take the leap and just try it. And I knew the alternative was going and working for someone else, which I didn't like that idea. And I think that's the kind of that independent mindset, really, of that it takes to be a bull rider is also what it takes to kind of start your own business. You have an idea, you want to do things a certain way, and want to have that freedom to make the call on different things. So step out and take a chance. And it's taking a chance. But being willing to do that, and I guess the thought of, well, what's the worst that can happen? And you can look at it like that, but you can, and you can think of it, that thought of, well, what if I fail? What if this happens? What if that happens? But the other question I think is great to ask is, man, what's the best that can happen? Like, what if this actually works? What if God decides to bless this whole opportunity and do something amazing with it? And choosing what you focus on is a huge thing. In bull riding, man, you have so many opportunities to focus on the negative, right? Days that you get bucked off, or days that something might be scary. You might be up against a bull that has a bad reputation, or that's bucked you off before, or that you have no idea about. Maybe that's what scares you. I think the unknown might scare us more than the known sometimes. But deciding on whether you want to focus on that, or whether you focus on the possibility of the amazing outcome. What's the best that can happen, instead of always going to the worst possible outcome. And that's a big thing that I've learned that has helped move me along as well, because we're all human, we all have that tendency. But shifting that focus towards the positive, I think, is a huge skill, but it's one that takes work to build that skill. And if you look at percentages of bull riding, you know, the percentage of times you stay on versus the times you get on, in a general sense, that's going to be low. You're going to, if you're riding more than 50% of your bulls, then you're rolling really good. You're winning lots and having, you know, a pretty good streak there. And there's lots of things you get into on why that happens with the preparation that's led you to that point and all those things. But as you're learning and growing and even on and off in your career, there's going to be spells where you're not riding 50% of your bulls. And trying to keep that positive mindset through that comes down to what you're looking to focus on. So focusing on that positive, focusing on the possibilities to come is a huge part of bull riding. I think some of the other crossovers come too in bull riding. You're kind of it. You're everything, right? You're the owner, the manager, you're the athletic director, you're the athletic trainer, you're having to be the businessman, you're the secretary, you're entering your rodeos, you're the travel agent, making sure you're getting where you need to go when, the chief financial officer, you're figuring out what funds you have to get to the next rodeo and how to best spend those. Yeah, in rodeo, there's not a whole lot of training with that. You kind of learn on the job a lot, and you learn by failure. You get it wrong, and getting things wrong has consequences. And when those come about, then it teaches you to make some better decisions next time, right? If you choose to learn from them. And that's kind of one of the things I would talk about is it's win or learn, right? It's not win or lose. It's only losing when you quit. But if you look at it with that mindset of win or learn, and I'm gonna take these mistakes, these failures, these down days, these bad decisions, and learn from them, and make sure that we don't make those same decisions next time, or how can we do things a little bit different next time to make them better. That's one of the big keys, I believe, in both bull riding and business. And it's something that we have to remind ourselves of all the time. There's constantly decisions to be made, and I know bull riding, I had to learn a lot of that as I went on the kind of on the job training, right? You learn as you go. And in business, for me, it's the same way. I didn't take a bunch of business classes. I didn't go to school for certain business things. I am living my business schooling every day. And when you do that, I think your lessons are a little more longer lasting. When you fail on this type of a learning curve, it doesn't just mean a bad grade on a test. When you fail on the job, it generally means dollars when you make a poor decision in business. And those lessons stick with you, and you try to learn how to make less of those mistakes and repeat the wins. But and again, going back to the idea of trying to have it all planned out and figured out before you start. If you wait for everything to be perfect, it's not going to happen. In bull riding, your bull runs in the chute, and after he runs in the chute, you have a chance to get your rope set on him. Make your preparations, get your rope adjusted so it fits right, and then you wait your turn. You wait for your chance to crawl on and nod your head, and that's how things start in bull riding. You got to crawl over there. You have a short window of time to prepare as far as getting your hand running the rope and getting things set, and then you have to nod. And a lot of times that's when some of the anxiety picks up, your mind can run wild, and especially in helping young guys and teaching schools and things, I see that's where that second guessing comes in, and I'll see people take a lot of time in there. And if you want to take extra time and you keep messing with things like it, shifting back and forth, keep messing with the tail of your rope, getting it set there, trying to get that perfect before you nod your head, like waiting, it's not quite right, it's not quite right, I got to get things adjusted just a little bit more. He's not standing just perfect, or he's leaning on my leg just a little bit. And sometimes you have to just get it good enough, because it's never going to be just perfect. And if you think it's just perfect, as soon as you nod your head, everything changes. It doesn't matter how good you get that bull standing. It doesn't matter just how you set your hand in that rope. None of that matters when you nod your head, because as soon as you nod your head, they open the gate, the bull moves, and everything changes. So much of that is like business. And people that are waiting to start their business, they like the idea of it. They wanna run their own business. They wanna have their own thing. They wanna make their own career of it, but just not quite yet. Maybe when this happens, then I'll start, right? Maybe when I have more time. Maybe when I get a little more caught up on my home projects. Maybe when the kids are out of school. Maybe when I have just enough money put away. A lot of these circumstances that you wait to be perfect aren't going to get perfect. And even if you get them to where you think they're perfect and you think you're completely prepared to start this business, as soon as you nod your head, as soon as you pull the trigger and start, things are going to change. So all the circumstances that you just prepped for and thought you had perfect are different now anyways. And they might be nothing like what you expected. So there's a point in time where you gotta not tread over that fine line of you need to be prepared enough to make it happen. You need to have the preparation of getting your bull rope on. You need to have the preparation of getting your hand in that bull rope. And we want to make sure the bull's looking out the gate so he's headed in the right direction. But beyond that, you just need to nod your head and then make your adjustments on the fly. And that's one thing that I think has gotten me to where I'm at in business, is not that I've done everything perfect, far from it. I've made lots of mistakes along the way, but I've been willing to make those mistakes fast. And what I mean by that is, if we're scared of mistakes and avoid them because we think we're going to get something wrong, then we don't quite know. We don't know what those mistakes are going to be. And you can sit in indecision and fear for a long time, waiting for things to be what you feel are perfect. And then down the road, you finally decide to do the thing, make the call, make the move, and then make the mistake on it to find the mistake then. And now, how far behind are you in your timeline? So when I say being willing to make the mistakes quick, I would rather make a decision, my best educated decision at the time, even if that decision turns out to be wrong. I would rather find out sooner, be able to decide, wow, yep, that was the wrong call. I needed to do something different. So now I can pivot, try to look for a better decision to make, and then move in that direction. You know, if you're going to stand in the middle of a room blindfolded and then have somebody tell you that you need to walk through the door, but all the lights are off and you're blindfolded, you can sit and think about what direction that doorway might be in and wait it out and think it over. But if you just start taking a step, reach out in front of you, start taking a step, and you may look out and it might be the right way and you might hit a doorway. Chances are you might get it wrong though, and you run into a wall. But if you run into that wall now, then you know that is one direction that's the wrong way. Kind of rule that out. Nope, wrong way. Now I can make a pivot and try something new. And at least that way you're making progress. And I don't think anything that we do, we're going to quite hit perfection, right? We're people, and by nature we're imperfect, but we can make progress. And I think to make progress, you have to take action. I mean, that's the kind of the big key to progress is movement. You got to move forward in a direction. So that was a big carryover lesson from bull riding to business for me. But other big lessons are people. Man, we can learn so much from people that have been there before us, and that's been, I think, been a huge part, is not just not just trying to do it all on my own, but trying to reach out and just learn from people that have been there before. Whether successful or not, there's always lessons to learn. You can learn something from everybody you talk to, but being willing to listen and take it all with a grain of salt too, but being willing to listen for those lessons. When we look at different directions we've gone in the business, you know, I think it's shifted over time in bull riding. We look at our travel, and that was one thing that kind of always seemed to shift. We'd go for a while, and it was all driving. Boy, we just drive everywhere, and that's good for a season, and then things seem to shift a little bit, and we would go for a season of, just because of how things worked out, circumstances, we needed to fly to everything. So then we would shift, and rather than driving to everything, we'd be flying everywhere, and then catching rides or rental cars or whatever once you got to a destination. And there's no one right way to rodeo. There's not an exact formula that says, hey, this is how one rodeos. This is how you do this. This is exactly how you should travel, and where you should travel, and when you should travel. You need to stay in these hotels, or not at all, or take these flights or those roads. But there was pros and cons to all of it. I kind of liked that it came in seasons a little bit, because, you know, the nice thing to the flights is, boy, you just get there so quick, right? It's not all the hours behind the wheel. However, the cons of that were the fact that you didn't have a vehicle once you got there. You know, you had to either have the cost of renting a vehicle, or you were jumping in with people, rely on other people for rides, and it just take a little bit of that freedom away, and added a little bit of a hassle in there. Cost of it at the time, you know, depending on fuel prices and stuff, you know, the cost of flying versus if you're driving and splitting that with 3 or 4 other guys, flying can get a little bit more expensive. But there was so many benefits at the time. You could get to different rodeos a lot further away and hit more of those. But you better be winning when you go, because there's that extra expense. Then you'd hit a season where, gosh, it'd just be, seems like you're driving everywhere. The rodeos all line up, and it makes way more sense just to boom, 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 drive and hit all these down the line. Again, downsides, that's a lot of windshield time, but again, I always seen that a little bit as a plus as well. But you have your vehicle with you, can have that freedom to set your own schedule a little bit more on the travel side of it as well. But there was no one right way to do it, and that's kind of in business. There's no one right way to run your business. So I am running a leather business. We've done this in many ways over the years, from doing strict custom work to doing repair work to non-repair work to inventory to wholesale, running just online sales, booth sales, in-store, brick and mortar, many different options out there. And I found that there's not one right way to do it either. It's kind of one of those, comes down to personal preference. What is the season of your business? How does that fit in? How do you want to run it? What works for you and your family at the time? So there's different factors, but they're, again, pros and cons to each, and not one right way. And realizing that in rodeos helped me be okay with that in business as well. And as much as you may worry about what other people are thinking or other people's opinions they may voice, pretty much as soon as you're out of sight, you're out of mind, and they really don't care. And it doesn't really matter, because again, it's your business and your family and how things are running. So we've made several changes over the years and gone back and forth with different seasons, and I think that will probably continue to change over the years as to the seasons in life for our family and what we feel is going to fit best at the time. And I think understanding that you have that freedom when you're running your own business is a really powerful thing. And knowing that just because it's the way you've always done it doesn't mean it's the way you always have to do it. Now, let's talk about bull riding and business. We've been moving right along here on this bull rider. We're getting down to the end of the beveling and getting ready to put a little shading in there. So before we put our shading, I think we're going to go to our backgrounds. If I can get the right tool out of my block here. There we go. We're going to go to the backgrounds and kind of talk a little bit about that whole idea of backgrounds, right? It's back, it's behind, and by pushing these backgrounds down, it's going to elevate the foreground, right? There's this part of the image that we're working on that we want to bring to the light. And that's by putting the background back down, helps bring that focus on that. And I think just what I kind of was thinking of as I was reaching for this tool here, that's really a lot like our kind of our walk through life. If we're focus on our background, our past, man, and just looking at that, you don't see the present. You don't see what's happening right now. We don't see the future, what could happen. If we're just focused on that past and that background. But the background's important because it helps bring to light the foreground. You know, your present and your future is kind of shaped a little bit by that background that you have. So it's not bad, but not staying there. Remembering there's always progress. And that's in both bull riding and business. We got to look for progress and not focusing on what was or what we didn't know at the time of learning, because there was a time, we talk about this at the bull riding schools, there was a time when all of us didn't know, gosh, which foot to put the right boot on, let alone how to add spurs to it and stay on bulls wearing them. So we're constantly learning and remembering that somebody helped us learn and get past that point of not knowing. So we need to be able to remember that and then recognize that past that we've had and where we've come from. But rather than just focusing and dwelling on that, learning on how that's going to help elevate us today and in what we want to become and where we want to go. I think also remembering that key factor that there's somebody out there who helped you progress along the way, and probably patient with you when you didn't understand something or know something, was willing to answer a question here or there, or nothing else, just wasn't afraid to fail in front of you, and you can learn from their mistakes. But when we remember that people have helped us in the past, it keeps us a little more graceful and willing to help people as they're looking to move forward as well. We're going to shift gears and go to some shading here. Start doing this shading in here, it's gonna bring some definition and add depth to things. Rather than being simply surface level like this is here, when we add that shading, it gives that depth and adds character to it. And the shading that we're adding, and we're adding this character in here, it's coming from pressure. Right? We're adding pressure to this leather, and we're kind of marring this and making marks in it. But this pressure that we're adding, this is kind of going in a little different direction, but it just came to mind, so I think somebody's going to need to hear this and think it might help. But when we add pressure to add the shading in here, we're creating a burnish, this darker color that's coming out of that leather. It's called a burnish. And what that's causing that is the pressure of this tool getting struck down on here is bringing out the moisture in that leather. The moisture comes from a process called casing, where I actually wet this leather down before we started here on this video. But the pressure putting down, bringing up this color from the casing. That casing is preparation, right? We prepared that leather in advance. And I think some of us face pressures, and if we've prepared ourselves for those, then it makes for a nice outcome, right? The pressure's actually, instead of damaging things, they expose the preparation. In leather here, the better that we've done preparing that leather, the better look that's going to come when we put it under pressure. So our outcome to pressure is directly related to our level of preparation before that pressure is added. Starting to take shape here. So another big question that I get, and this relates to bull riding and business both, is the question of what does 23 plus mean? So my business name is 23 plus, and some people don't think about it at all, and which is fine, but other people do ask that question, wonder, well, what is 23 plus? How'd you come up with that name? So we've talked about bull riding as being part of my past. Well, in bull riding, there is the judging for that. There's traditionally 2 judges. Each judge would mark the rider 1 to 25, how well he rides, and mark the bull 1 to 25 on how well he bucks, for a total out of 100. Well, in rodeo and bull riding, kind of that mark of excellence is if you're 90 or more, right? If you're up in the 90s, that's a really good ride. And to do that, if you were a 23 ride on a 23 bull, you'd be 92 points, up into the 90s. So it's kind of a mark of excellence in rodeo. Sometimes you go to big rodeos like Denver, San Antonio, Houston, Cheyenne, some of these bigger rodeos that last several days, and you might have a bull drawn that you don't know anything about, but he was out earlier in the week. They've already bucked him once. Well, they have to post the judges' sheets there, so you might go to the judges' sheets when you get there and see, gosh, this bull was out on Tuesday. What got done on him Tuesday, how was he? And you check those sheets, and they would mark the time down if a guy got bucked off. So you might see next to your bull, you know, and the guy that had him earlier, you know, 1.67, like he bucked him off really quick. And then on the bull score, just say 23 plus, or wow, or something like that next to it. And if you see that 23 plus or 23 plus with a question mark, like I don't even know, it tells you you got a good one. You better have your hammer cocked and your powder dry, because you have a chance to win something here, but he's going to be all there. And that same effort that it takes to be 90 in the bull riding is the same effort we want to put into every product or service that we offer here at 23 plus. And that was kind of the idea behind that name. And in thinking of that too, we'll say, well, gosh, why don't you want it to be perfect? Why don't you call it 25? It's like, I think we're not going to be perfect ever. We talked about that earlier. We can strive for it, but I don't think if we feel like we're perfect, then we're not going to be pushing to improve. And there's if you're ever going to reach a level of perfection in anything, you're going to have to be constantly looking to improve. And I think always going at something with that posture that you have room for improvement is going to keep you getting better, and keep you looking for those ways to improve. In rodeo and bull riding, when you get done with a ride, there's that time for self-reflection, right? You get done, whether it went really good and you were just, 90 or 92 and won the bull riding, or whether you got bucked off right out of the chute. I think there's 3 questions to ask yourself always, and that is, what went right? And that's the first question I like to ask, like, man, what went right? Because there's always something that went right. Some days you have to go back a ways to find that. It's, at bull riding, it might be, I had really good chute procedure, like meaning that getting down in the chute, I did that just right. I nodded my head and everything else went bad, but I remembered that. Or maybe you didn't have very good chute. Maybe it had to go back to you got your boots on the right feet that morning. I don't know what it is, but you have to think about what went right. And then, because that's giving yourself credit, and setting that positive mindset, and not just getting completely down on yourself. But then the next question is, what went wrong? What did I not like about that performance? And again, even if you were 90 and won the rodeo, there's still something that wasn't quite right. There's still something that left room for improvement next time. So what went right? What went wrong? And then the last question is, what can I do to improve this next time? And these same questions need to be applied to business as well. Whether that's a day in the shop, whether it is looking back at a quarter throughout the year of business, whether it's looking at a specific show that you went to, vendor event, something like that, a business deal negotiation, anything there. I think those questions are important to ask. What went right? What went wrong? And what can I do to improve that for next time? Without asking these, we don't give ourselves the opportunity to improve. We leave it up to chance. If we just say, well, it happens sometimes. Well, there may be a time and place for that, but we have to take responsibility for things as well. And I think if it's your fault, then you have room to change. You have control to change that outcome the next time around. If it's not your fault, if you just take that victim mindset of, well, I couldn't do anything about it, or such and such caused it, or this happened to me, and you take that victim mindset, then there's no winning in that. If it's not your fault, you don't have the power to change that at all. And if it's your fault, it needs to be your fault all the time. We don't want to just take credit when something goes right, but when it goes wrong as well. And even if something on the surface might seem like it's not your fault, I encourage you to find out how that is your fault. Because a victim is just that, it's a victim. You can't do anything about it. But if it's your fault, you have the control to change that. You can change the narrative, you can make a decision, change your strategy, try something different, prepare better, say no to certain things, say yes to others, partner with different people, seek education, all sorts of things. Change your effort level on something. Again, it gives you power to make a difference. All right, we're getting quite close on this guy. We're going to add a few more details on this. I mean, we could stop right there and say it's good enough. All right, but I think there's room for improvements on this. So we're going to do that. And we're going to do it through very small details here. And I think it's important to remember that the details add up to make the big picture. And in bull riding thinks, you know, you can think it's just a big wild thing, but really it's a game of inches. It's a game of just a little bit. You get your hips shifted one way or the other, and that little difference makes all the change in your outcome. You know, that little bit of a shift. In leatherwork here, these little details, that little veiner I put around there makes that difference. It makes that stand out, gives that a little texture. These light decorative cuts are going to bring your eye around there and help fine-tune this pattern a bit. And it's the little things that we do that seem to make all of the difference. But it's not just the little things one time. It's the little things spread out and done consistently. And in business, it's no different. It's the little things done consistently over time that make a difference. To sum up, we kind of told the story of what 23 plus means and how it came about. But if somebody's looking for the short little elevator version of what is 23 plus, so it's a mark of excellence in rodeo. And when we look at that mark of excellence, and we want to do things with excellence here at 23 plus, well, what is excellence? I think to do something with excellence is to exceed someone's expectations that they have going in to something, going into an event, going into a transaction. Everybody's going to have certain expectations of what that is. And we had that experience. I had the opportunity to go to a Brazilian steakhouse one time. I don't know if you guys have ever done that. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. It's a great opportunity. It's basically a really nice, fancy steakhouse, but their service is impeccable. Like, it is excellent service. It definitely exceeded my expectations. I didn't know what a Brazilian steakhouse was. I just figured it was another steakhouse with a little different flavoring on their meat, but no, they like roast everything on the spigot, and then they bring it around and carve it off right onto your plate. Man, the service there was just unbelievable. You go to get up to get something, and there's somebody already like grabbing your chair for you. Come back to the table, your napkin's like refolded and back on the table. Like, just, it's crazy the amount of service, but they exceed expectations. You know, if you show up somewhere, they say, well, it's going to be, you know, about a 15-minute wait for your table. Okay, great, not a problem. But then that hostess comes back in 5 minutes. Hey, your table's ready, it's over here. Show up, there's water already on the table, all those things. Like, wow, that's great. That's excellent service. I figured it was going to be another 10 minutes waiting, you know. So in business, what can we do? What are those little things? It's sending the thank you cards. It's under promising and over delivering. It's taking responsibility when things go wrong. If the, you know, a shipment gets lost in the mail or something like that, and you say, gosh, I'm sorry, that's horrible. It's out of our control. Sure wasn't something that was technically our fault, right? But if we're gonna give somebody that excellent service, think, man, how would I like to be treated if I was in that position? Gosh, let's get another one on the way. Let me know if that one ever shows up. We can take care of it at the time, but we want to make sure you get your product, right? Those little steps that we can do consistently over time will shape the culture of your business and shape that reputation and kind of create your brand that you have in your business. So going at something with that attitude of just deciding that you're going to win, no matter what that looks like. Being willing to make the mistakes along the way, shift, make adjustments, and move forward from there. But that's a little bit of my journey from bull rider to business, thoughts along the way, and lessons that I've learned. And in the meantime, we have tooled up this specialty pattern here, which we will link that in the description if you do want to get a hold of that specialty pattern and tool that for yourself. Maybe another day we'll do a little more of an actual tooling tutorial on it rather than just talking through it. But I hope you guys have enjoyed. Appreciate you allowing me to be on your Leathercraft journey, and look forward to seeing you in the next video.